Hi, Glenn here, the People's Carpenter. So I'm kind of wrapped up in this project in home that I'm doing, and as I'm doing it I'm thinking, because I'm doing this I'm not doing any workshop projects which create videos, and then I just thought, well, maybe I'll make a video of this. So that's what I'll do. I'm making a firewood shed. I have already begun, but I thought to myself, I like watching videos of people making sheds. So maybe people will like watching this. Let's find out. So this is the part that I've already done. And this is all H3.2 treated timber, apart from the beams on the ground, which are H4. The higher the level of treatment, the more resistant the wood is to rot and to insects and such things. H3.2 is fine to have out in the rain. H4 is good if it's going to be making ground contact. And I think I've probably bought more than I need, which seems like the right thing to do. And I've cut most of, but not all of, the framing already. But what I'm doing just now is I've been thinking about ways of making this look nice, because it's going to be in our yard. It's going to be just outside our back door off the deck. I want it to look good because we're going to be seeing it all the time. And so I'm thinking about making some nice battens. I thought maybe I would use all these pieces of cedar that I've got, which would work well and look nice, but I have other plans for those and I didn't want to use them. So I have some, I was going to say nice, it's not nice right now, but it will be, a whole lot of, I've got more of this in my shelving around the corner. This, and there are different names for this kind of wood depending on where you are. In some parts of the world they just call this Douglas fir. That's risky in New Zealand because we have another timber that we call Douglas fir, which is a little bit different from this, slightly similar, but not quite the same. This is what we call Canadian Oregon, which has a really strongly contrasting grain, which is, I guess, why we like it. I really love it. And I'm going to be cutting this up to make some exterior battens that will look nice over the plywood. The plywood itself will be stained. Yeah. Let's see how this goes. So that's all the framing that I'm going to do just now. That's the side walls, which are the short ones, and the back wall. Now the upright pieces, called the studs, when I'm building a shed or anything large, I'm more particular about where they go. I would normally do those 600 millimeters apart, and that's because a standard sheet of plywood or plasterboard is 1200 millimeters wide. So it's divisible, and that's the way buildings are typically built here in New Zealand, but it's just a wood shed. And I already know how I'm going to orientate the plywood, so that's not necessary. It would be normal to put the external cladding on after the framing is all assembled. I'm just going to put the plywood cladding on this wall first before I put the shed up, because this wall is going to be facing the garage and there's not going to be any room for me to get in there and easily attach it then. This must be my current favourite toy. I'm going to stain this surface, but not really for aesthetic reasons. You won't really see this surface because it'll be the back, but the stain does still provide some protection from the elements, which is why I'm doing it. And that'll do. I'm not finished planing these all to the same thickness just yet, but I do have to empty my dust bag. Okay, well, I've gotten them all down to the same thickness. I haven't eliminated all of the rough patches on the surface. There are still some little bits of paint, but given what I'm planning on doing to these, that won't matter. Well, my band sawing has ended prematurely because my blade has broken. It has seen a fair bit of use, so I probably won't get the blade repaired. I will probably get it replaced, but either of those would have taken the same amount of time because I'm going to have to go to my bandsaw guy, who is now not quite local to me because I've moved. This is where a table saw would have been better, but, well, I just don't have one. Bother! Because I'm not quite finished. I still had some small pieces to go. I guess I'll just continue with what I was going to do with the others, and if I don't have enough to do the job fully, then I will just finish the job once I've got a new blade. For the side panels, I decided to put the cladding on before the whole thing was assembled as well, just because it occurred to me that it might be easier to do it before I put it on. As the last of the light fades, although I am under the security light, which is handy, I've finished all the framing apart from the roof, which I'll do in the coming days. No huge hurry for that because the roofing material won't be here for at least a few more days. So I built the framing to the same height all the way around, but then I attached this additional piece here to create the roof angle. Well, my battery's run out and it's wet out here. I'm just going to stop for now. Run out of nails. So these are the pieces of cedar that I didn't want to use for all of the battens because I have other plans for them, but I figured I could spare just 2 long pieces. It's a wet day, but I don't like having my projects held up. I really want to get this one out of the way as quickly as I can, so I've just rigged up this temporary shelter with a piece of plywood, and I'm staining the front like so. Not terribly interesting, but necessary. It's winter and it is fairly cold outside and also intermittently raining, albeit very lightly, so it's not ideal to be out there oiling things, which is what I need to do now. So I'm definitely going to have to get my bandsaw blade replaced because I just won't be able to make enough of these otherwise. Right, the old blade is in my bucket of metal waste, and there is a nice new blade on there now. So I'm building the frame for the roof. I've already cut the pieces of framing, but before I assemble the roof frame, I'm going to put some cuts in the pieces of the framing that will be sitting on the frame of the body of the shed. And the reason I'm doing that is, you can see just now there's only one point of contact, one tiny point of contact between this piece and that piece, and I want things to be a bit more stable. I'd like this to be able to sit flat on there. And so I am taking a piece of wood and sitting it flat so that I can see what angle I'll have to cut. It's a fairly shallow angle, which, you know, might mean having to cut all the way along to the end like that, but I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to cut out this piece here. So once that's removed, this will sit flat. And I'll use that same method on all of the 3 pieces of roof framing that are actually going to be making contact with the framing of the shed. has started to rain ever so slightly, so I didn't bring the other camera outdoors again. But there you can see the cuts that I made on the bandsaw, and I said I wouldn't cut all the way along there, but with the bandsaw it was actually just easier if I did. So there we are. Now you can see that piece is sitting relatively flush on the frame, like so. So the hanging rafters out the side here don't need the cut, of course, but I've made that cut on all the rafters that are resting on the framing, and that's perfect. Some places it doesn't currently look perfect, but there's a reason for that. That's not quite making contact, but that's because there is a slight, ever so slight warp to the overall frame. Once it's all nailed down, that'll be great. I've reached the point in this project where I would really like it to be finished, so maybe I'm being a bit impatient with my recording. I didn't show you me laying the roofing sheets on there and putting the first row of screws in. I used that piece of framing timber just to guide me to make sure that I got my screws into the batten, and I'll do the same there as well. I'm tossing up in my mind what to do about flashings. I'm going to use flashings, but should I buy them or just make some timber ones? I mean, either way, it'll work fine. I think what I'll do is have a look on Marketplace, and if there are any really cheap flashings going, I'll buy them. Otherwise, I'll just make some. So I did buy a piece of flashing that's going to go across the front. That's called barge flashing, and I'm going to build flashing for the sides. But before I put the flashing on the front, I mean, that's kind of ugly, so I'm going to make what's called a fascia board, and I've done that by taking one of the, well, not quite 2x4, slightly larger than that, of Canadian Oregon, and it wasn't 2.4 meters long, so not long enough to do in one piece, but I've used two pieces that are 1.2 meters long, and I've ripped some boards out of that, and I'm oiling those now. We are so close. And there we go. The firewood shed is done. It will no longer be occupying my time and my thoughts or my tools. I'm going to get back to doing what I enjoy. Not that this has been unenjoyable, but what I really enjoy.